And once again, it is I, the Nomad, coming to you live from the wastelands of the internet. And I bring news. Well, news you may want, news you probably don't want, and news you may have heard, and I'm pretty sure news you probably haven't seen. All right, as we go on. Let's get started, shall we? Ukraine left defenseless as secret ally reverses Patriot system deal. The Netherlands and a mysterious ally were supposed to deliver a complete Patriot system to the Ukraine. However, the ally backed out, and Kiev will not receive a weapon to protect the country from air attacks. For many months, Ukraine has been appealing for air defense systems to protect its citizens and military installations from Russian missiles and drones. One of the countries that responded to this appeal was the Netherlands. At the end of May, the Ministry of Defense announced its intention to deliver a Patriot system to the Ukraine, stating that the Netherlands had the basic components ready. They were looking for an ally to provide the missing parts to make the system fully operational. The Patriot system consists of many components. Its core is the fire control system that includes a fire and control radar, a battle management station, an OE 349 antenna mast, and a power station. It also includes 8 missile launchers and the missiles themselves. It turned out that Netherlands had 3 launch installations and radar. The rest was supposed to be provided by another country. In June, the minister announced that they had found a country that had agreed to provide the missing parts of the system. However, they did not specify which country that was. According to ANP, the donation will not happen. The Defense Ministry spokesman stated that the ministry was recently informed that the previously mentioned commitment from the ally will not be honored. The ministry does not want to disclose who that ally is. Gee, I wonder why. First of all, I suspect that this has nothing to do with supplying equipment. Okay? Read the tea leaves here. Okay? This has nothing. I'm serious. You have to read the tea leaves here, but it's really easy to figure out that what the problem here is moolah. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, the Dutch don't want to have to pay for this. So they want an ally to complete it on their cost. Instead of the ally getting reimbursed, all right, by the Dutch for whatever missing component we're dealing with. Okay? Now, the reality is this is not going to really change the dynamics. A single Patriot battery with 8 missiles, 8, okay, it's not going to fix any of this. You need a slew of these things. You need a phalanx of these things. Several of these set up on a line, all right, in order to cover for coverage for one thing, but also for the fact that when you're dealing with more than, I don't know, 8 airframes, these things are good enough to knock down every Soviet jet that's out there. Or Russian, excuse me, jet that's out there. That's all true. But 8, considering the thousands of drones that have been fired at them, no. there's money involved here. What's happening is there's a deeper commitment that's being rejected, and I guarantee you one of the problems is as they use the missiles, who's going to replace them? You think the Netherlands are going to do that? They're going to chew up the cost of those missiles. How expensive do you think those missiles are? They're not cheap. They are not cheap, folks. Guarantee you. The main reason is money. Somewhere along the lines, it's a money deal. Now, could that ally be the United States? It's backing out of this? Sure. Because there's a lot of problems right now in the United States in supplying weaponry. But this fits nicely with the next story. The US and the UK approved Ukraine strikes on Russian territory without announcing it. From The Guardian. The United States and the United Kingdom have granted Kiev permission to strike targets in Russia's rear with long range missiles, but this has not been officially announced, reports The Guardian. The publication, citing its own sources, noted that London and Washington have decided to allow the Ukraine to use long range missiles, but are not ready to announce it. Deploying the missiles, Western officials said, should be part of a wider plan designed to bring about the end of the full-scale war, the report states. For several months, Kiev has been seeking permission from the United States and the UK to use Western long-range missiles against targets and air bases in Russia's rear. However, both the governments have prohibited the Ukrainian armed forces from carrying out such actions, fearing a significant escalation, like the invasion portion of Ukraine going into Russia hasn't done that already. On Friday, U.S. President Joe Biden and UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer held a meeting at the White House. The leaders discussed granting permission for the strikes on Russian rear positions. Before this, the White House National Security Advisor John Kirby noted that the U.S. ban on such strikes has not been lifted and will not be lifted. Okay. If the United States starts supplying weapons that are then used as deep strike hits on Russia, right, what will Russia do in response? Russia has a lot more options than people think here. Okay? Before somebody says, oh, there's nothing they can do more. I beg to differ. Russia has the ability to widen the war very simply by hitting, oh, I don't know, Germany. Throw a few missiles Germany's way and see how long that lasts. But see, Germany's already capitulated. Don't forget this, folks. Germany has already said we're not going to sit up there and fund any more of the war. That's the EU's responsibility. We already did an article on that. Remember? We're already going this way. This is good. War has a very much a potential to widen. And no matter how you look at it, it's not going to end well. Either way, it's not going to end well for the Ukrainians. I want you to consider this when I make this statement. People thinking like, "Oh, you're just a Russian bot. You're just a Russian supporter or everything else." No, I'm just going to point this out. There's another story that's going to add to this in a minute. Okay. In fact, let's go ahead and get to it right now. In Belarus, the national language is vanishing as Russian takes prominence. Talion, Estonia from the AP. When school started this year, Macaulay in Belarus, the 15-year-old discovered that his teachers and administrators no longer called him by his name. Instead, they referred to him as Nikolai, its Russian equivalent. Macaulay versus Nikolai. It's what's more, classes at his school, one of the country's best, are now taught in Russian, not Belarusian, which he has spoken for most of his life. Belarusians like Mikolay are experiencing a new wave of Russification as Moscow expands its economic, political, and cultural dominance to overtake the identity of its neighbor. It is not the first time. Russia, under the Tsars and in the era of the Soviet Union, imposed its language, symbols, and cultural institutions on Belarus. But with the demise of the USSR in 1991, the country began to assert its identity. The Belarusian briefly became the official language, with the red what or excuse me, the white, red, and white national flag replacing a version of the red hammer and sickle. But all that changed in 1994 after Alexei Lushenko, the former Soviet collective farm official, came to power. Authoritarian leader made Russian an official language alongside Belarusian and did away with nationalist symbols. Now, with Lushenko in control of the country for 3 decades, he has allowed Russia to dominate all aspects of life in Belarus, a country of 9.5 million people. Belarusian, which like Russian uses the Cyrillic alphabet, is hardly heard in the streets of Minsk and other large cities anymore. Official business is conducted in Russian, which dominates the majority of the media. Lushenko only speaks Russian, and government officials often do not use their native tongue. Now, why is that? Why is it? This goes back to the question I was asking before. Let's assume let's just make an assumption here. Let's assume that Russia, Vladimir Putin, wakes up one day and goes, you know what, folks? The war in Ukraine is over. I am pulling my forces all the way out. And he just pulls all his forces all the way out. All the way out of the Donetsk region, out of all these other areas. Let's assume he does that. Oh, hail the victor! The great Ukrainians have won. What have they won? A destroyed country. They've gained nothing. Nomad, don't you understand? They've gained their independence. Okay, you can believe that if you want. It would be a step toward that. I would agree. But for how long? I'm not trying to be. I'm not trying to be. I'm trying to be realistic here. I'm trying to get people to understand. Just because you have a unified language, just because you have a cultural identity that is different than a different countries, doesn't mean you're a nation. You must continue to have defensible borders. There are no defensible borders in the Ukraine. The reality is, if Belarus, all right, would have allowed Russian troops to attack and attacked from Belarus and joined the attack, there wouldn't be a Ukraine right now. The Ukraine would have fallen a long time ago. Why am I mentioning Belarus? What's a country unto itself, nomad? Look what you're doing. They've been holding them off. That's because Lukashenko is playing a political game, not because Lukashenko any has any wonderful feelings about or individualistic feelings about Belarus versus Russia. He is playing a long-term political game for his own political power, where he wants to put himself and replace Vladimir Putin. Okay. He wants to continue his own power place, his own power base. None of these areas have defensible borders. The reason Lukashenko is doing all this stuff and that the people are acquiescing is that culturally they've always been constantly invaded back and forth through this area because there's no defensible borders that they have. These were small little fiefdoms under the great czars. I shouldn't call them small. I mean, they're huge, but when I say small, I'm referring generally to the population. You got to understand what you're dealing with here. There are no defensible borders. Now, if you say that Ukraine has defensible borders, really? They can defend their own borders? No, they cannot. If it wasn't for massive U.S. equipment, Ukraine would have gone the way of the dodo. Even more so when you look at U.S. intelligence that's been feeding this. Where we've identified where the weak points of the Russians are so that the Russians could get hit by the Ukrainians, which have slowed their attacks down, which has changed this into a meat grinder. Otherwise, it would have been a bulldozer that would have bulldozed right through them, and there would have been no stopping if the United States had not been immediately providing vast intelligence and resources to stop Russia's invasion. Russia would have walked over them. And now it's a meat grinder, though. But it's a meat grinder the Ukrainians cannot win if it's played out to its end this way. Because the Russians have far more people, and they can throw far more people into this meat grinder, and nobody wants to talk about this, but the Ukrainians are in a lot of trouble. They are losing men at a rate that's unsustainable in the long term, and they know it, which is why they want to launch these attacks into Russia. To try and widen the war. They want to bring NATO into the war. Well, no matter if NATO goes into the war, they could take care of this problem lickety split. Not if the Russians use nukes, and they will. Understand this. You're looking at World War III. There's 3 potential areas. We're going to be talking about each one of them. This is number 1. Number 2, an American activist killed by Israeli fire is buried in Turkey as Israel strikes the Gaza. A Turkish-American activist who was killed by Israeli fire in the West Bank was laid to rest on Saturday in her hometown in Turkey, with thousands lining the streets and anti-Israeli feelings in the country rising from a conflict that threatens to spread across the region. Anasur Ezgi, a 26-year-old woman from Seattle, was shot dead September 6th by an Israeli soldier during a demonstration against the West Bank settlements, according to an Israeli protester who witnessed the shooting. Thousands of people. So she was just walking around. I'm here to protest you. I'm an American going somewhere where she doesn't belong. She's not an American. She's an American, or if you want to say she's Turkish. All right. Then what the hell is she doing in Israel? What the hell is she doing in Gaza or in the West Bank, rather? Not Gaza, but in the West Bank. What's she doing there protesting? Thousands of people lined the streets of the Turkish coastal town of Didim, all right, in the Aegean Sea as Aigi, right, was buried in a coffin draped with the Turkish flag, which was taken from her family home. A portrait of her wearing her graduation gown was propped up against the coffin as people paid their respects. Her body was earlier brought from a hospital to her family home and Didim's Central Mosque. Turkey condemned the killing and announced it will conduct its own investigation into the death. We are not going to leave our daughter's blood on the ground. We demand responsibility and accountability for this murder. What the hell was she doing there? How do you know she wasn't a member of ISIS? ISIS is gone. No, man, ISIS is gone. They don't exist anymore. 4 ISIS leaders killed in August 29th raid in Iraq, says U.S. military. 4 ISIS leaders were killed as part of a U.S.-Iraqi raid in western Iraq on August 29 that killed 14 operatives, the United States military said on Friday. The U.S. disclosed the operation in August. It also injured 7 military personnel. On Friday, the U.S. Central Command said it was now able to confirm the deaths of several ISIS leaders, including Ahmad Hamad Hussein Alu Jalil al Iwasi. Trying to butcher the name, just can't pronounce them. All right, who was responsible for all operations in Iraq. ISIS doesn't exist anymore. I was talking to a colleague um, at work, and she made the stupid statement to my face that what's going on in Israel with Palestine is that it's a genocide. And I took her to task. Have you seen what's happening? Yeah, I have. It's called war. There's a difference between genocide and war. The inability, the reason people are using this term, right, is to fuzz the differential and to justify the murdering butchers of Hamas and their Palestinian supporters. Do not misunderstand this. The Palestinians saying, okay, we surrender, we will stop attacking Israel, ends this entire battle. Ends all the killing, ends all the beatings, ends it all. All they got to do is turn the Hamas supporters over. But no, man, you don't understand. They're afraid of Hamas. Are you more afraid of Hamas or are you more afraid of the Israelis? Why are you more afraid of Hamas than you are of the Israelis? That you're willing to support them, and then turn right around to my face and bitch and whine about it's a genocide. Israel's committing a genocide. Oh, but you're not afraid of Israel. Hamas has been killing more of their own people than Israeli has for decades. Kind of ignored it. It's okay. Israel goes in there. Hamas sits up there and intentionally sits up there and hides behind these people like the cowards and dirtbags that they are. And the UN says, friggin' nothing. The UN says nothing about the Hamas leadership intentionally using hospitals and children and schools as human shields. They just sit there quietly. Bad! Bad Israel! Bad! I'm not an Israeli supporter. I'm truly not. I can't stand Israelis. But Israel isn't threatening their neighbors. It's the other way around. You can bitch and say, "Oh no, that's not true. That's not true. They're building mosques or they're building temples and they're taking land on the West Bank and they're doing all these." Say what you want. Have they gave back the Sinai? They gave Gaza. They pulled completely out of Gaza. Gaza was being run by Palestinians. It wasn't being harmed by anybody. All right. Israel wasn't going in there bombing them or anything until Hamas said, "Okay, that's it. We're going to go after you, and just start butchering people in their sleep." And of course, what we're going to attack? Oh, we hit a couple military installations, but our main thing is to attack things like, oh, look, there's concerts. Let's go kill a bunch of freaking people, dancing at a concert. Man, that was a school. They hit a school. Don't you understand that? Don't you understand, no, man? They hit a school. The Israelis hit a school. Well, who was there? Well, Hamas was hiding one of their command posts there. Oh, okay. No condemnation from the UN. Where are the constant refrain from the EU to demanding Hamas stop using their people for human shields unless, and if they don't, they'll just remove all support for them? Where is it? Well, we got to get humanitarian aid. Oh, you mean the humanitarian aid, which they then use to sit up there and convert them into weapons and then fire missiles into Israel? That humanitarian aid? How many people miss this little nugget? Iran says it successfully launched a satellite with rocket that officials fear may advance the ballistic missile program. No shit. Iran launched a satellite into space Saturday with a rocket built by the country's paramilitary Revolutionary Guard, the state run media reported. The latest for a program the West fears helps Tehran advance its ballistic missile program. Iran described the launch as a success, which would be the second such launch to put a satellite in orbit with the rocket. There was no immediate independent confirmation of the launch's success. Footage later released by the Iranian media shows the rocket blast off from a mobile launcher. An Associated Press analysis of the video and other imagery later released suggested that the launch happened at the Guard's launch pad on the outskirts of Shahrud, some 215 miles east of the capital of Tehran. The launch comes amid heightened tensions gripping the wider Middle East over the ongoing Israeli-Hamas war in the Gaza Strip, during which Tehran launched an unprecedented direct missile and drone attacks on Israel. Meanwhile, Iran continues to enrich uranium to, to nearly weapons grade levels, all right, raising concerns among the non-proliferation experts about Tehran's programs. Iran has identified the satellite carrying the rocket, the Qaem 100, which the Guard used in January for another successful launch. Qaim means upright in Iran's Farsi language. The solid fueled three-stage rocket put a Tamran 1 satellite weighing 132 pounds into a 340-mile orbit, state media reported. The rocket bore the Quranic verse, "That which is left by Allah is better for you if you are believers." The state owned subsidiary of Iran's defense ministry and experts at the Aerospace Research Institute built the satellite with others to test hardware and software systems for orbital maneuver technology and validation, state media said without elaborating. I have said this before to morons who don't understand. As soon as you can sit up there and put things in orbit, you can hit anywhere in the world. You combine that with a nuclear weapon, you can now hit any nation worldwide. Any nation, anywhere worldwide. If you're launching satellites, that's your purpose of your program. Why are you using a mobile launcher? Dumbasses. Why are you using a mobile launcher? If you got a peaceful situation, why are you launching from a mobile launch facility? Makes absolutely no sense if it's peaceful. Makes a lot of sense if you're trying to use mobile rocket launchers like the Germans did with their V-2s back in World War II. That's area number 2. Area number 3. How many people saw this little nugget from Reuters? China condemns German Navy's transit of the Taiwanese Strait. China's military on Saturday condemned the transit of 2 German Navy ships through the Taiwanese Strait, saying it increased security risks and sent the wrong signal, adding that Chinese forces monitored and warned the vessels. China, which claims democratically governed Taiwan as its own, says it alone exercises sovereignty and jurisdiction over the strait. Both the United States and Taiwan said the strait, a major trade route through which about half of the global container ships pass, is an international waterway. The People's Liberation Eastern Theater Command said that the passage of the 2 ships, a frigate and a supply vessel, was public hyping, and that its Navy and Air Forces monitored and warned them throughout. The German side's behavior increases security risk and sends the wrong signal. Troops in the theater are on high alert at all times and will resolutely counter all threats and provocations, it said in a statement. China's embassy in Germany said in a separate statement that it lodged representations with Berlin, saying that Taiwan belonged to China, a position the democratically elected government of Taipei strongly rejects. The question of Taiwan is not a matter of freedom of navigation, but of China's sovereignty and territorial integrity. The Taiwan Strait is Chinese waters, and there is no so called international waters at all, the embassy added. China urges Germany to avoid any interference that would jeopardize the healthy and stable development of bilateral relations. Yeah. China, which has never renounced its use of force to bring Taiwan under its control, has over the past 5 years stepped up its military activities around the island, including staging war games. Uh, Taiwan's defense ministry said last month that it believes that China lacks the ability to fully invade Taiwan as it does not have the equipment. A remark which on Saturday drew a rebuke from China's defense ministry. The Democratic Progressive Party authorities' claims are absurd and ridiculous, said Wu Qian in Beijing, referring to Taiwan's ruling party. The complete reunification of the motherland is a historical inevitability. It is inevitable. On Saturday, Taiwan's Coast Guard said that it again sent ships to monitor and warn away 4 Chinese maritime police vessels sailing in restricted waters near Taiwan's controlled Kinmen Islands, which sit right next to China's coast. The Chinese ships have continued to provoke and damage peace in the strait, and the Coast Guard is determined to defend Taiwan's sovereignty, upholding the principle of no provocation, no conflict, no show weakness, it said. Calls on China's defense ministry seeking comment went unanswered. Okay. China is in a bad way right now. Okay. Pooh Bear learned a really unpleasant fact recently, and that was corruption was so endemic that their vaunted strategic missile systems, many of which had been fueled with water because of the endemic corruption within China. And so he has started on a program to redress that issue. Now, you can say what you want about, okay, how successful are they going to be, et cetera, but they're serious about it. You have to understand that they are serious about it. And it's understandable. Excuse me here while I fix my microphone. Or attempt to fix my microphone. They really, in a lot of ways, don't have much of a choice. Okay? They truly don't. Um, they have to fix that issue. The problem is as soon as you attempt to try to redress the corruption that has caused a lot of other problems, you really haven't addressed the corruption. Because the whole system is corrupt. The whole society accepts corruption. Once a society accepts as a standard way of doing business, as a standard way of life within your country, rooting out corruption becomes massively more difficult because you got to convince people that taking bribes is bad when they see everybody taking a bribe. This is the problem with immigration, unchecked immigration, when you bring in a bunch of people from all these other countries where bribery is the standard way of life, and they come to America thinking that's okay. America has enough of its problems right now trying to root out the corruption in it, but as more and more people accept, well, that's just the way to do life, it becomes harder and harder and harder, all right, to actually fix it. It's one of the flaws within the civilized societies. And this shit isn't never going to end. You end up with crap like this. How a woman with a coconut placard was tracked down, taken to court, and acquitted. Maria Hussein, who marched for 3 hours with her family and the children with them, We're, we're getting tired. We opened up some snacks to keep them going. They were part of the 300,000 strong pro Palestinian demonstration in central London on November 11th, 2023. Then somebody from my side of the street where I was standing called out and asked, "Can I take a picture of your placard?" This was the first time she had been asked for a picture. Her family's placards she said it had drawn a lot of attention. On one side of the placard was the cartoon Sula Braverman, then the Home Secretary dressed as Cruella de Vil from 101 Dalmatians. Ms. Hussein held up the sign and posed. The voice called out, "No, not that one. Could you turn it around, please?" And I did. And that was it. And so what was her placard saying? I was curious. This is her placard. Basically saying that Richard Sunak and whoever this other person is, all right, uh, are are coconuts falling from a tree, which of course was deemed racist by the British people or the British police, who then arrested this woman, charged her for being a racist. Now, I don't know what coconuts have to do with anything. I truly don't. I don't know how it's considered racist. Just putting it out there, I don't understand. But is the government going to run around going racist about anything and everything? If she had done that with Tony Blair, or she had done that with Cameron, or with Boris, would there have been any kind of commentary? Would it have been a big issue? Somehow I doubt it. But people are going to come to terms with the fact that just because you're insulted, just because someone's using an insulting term, doesn't give you license for anything. Just put it out there. The White House takes executive action against a deluge of minimus shipments. De minimis shipments. What the hell is this? Okay, well, let's get to it. All right, well, it's going to sit up there and cause me problems. I'll just go on to explaining what this is. What this is from China. The Chinese have created little websites for direct shipments to the United States to avoid dun 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 tariffs. And so the Biden administration, along with Kamala Harris, all right, are now going, how dare they? How dare they not pay their fair share taxes? So they're basically cracking down on foreign entities that are using direct shipments into the United States to avoid tariffs. Specifically, in this case, tariffs on clothing. Now, I can hear everybody going, oh, so they're doing a good thing. No, man, they're doing a good thing. Are they? What did Harris and Biden complain about with the Trump administration and the fact that he leveled tariffs on people and how expensive it was and that all the people's costs and he was the cause of inflation? Weren't you just saying that? Bent. Weren't you just saying that that these tariffs that he imposed on China were causing inflation in America. That's one of the most dreaded things. So companies avoiding it are okay. Not anymore. Not anymore. This is the problem. And yet, where's ABC News? Where's that fliptard on ABC News? Okay, wait a minute here. This is hypocrisy. How can you sit up there and bitch about Trump leveling tariffs to protect the terrorists on the country, right? And you're doing this shit. How do you get away with that? Here is why that evil, despicable Senator Tuberville is back to blocking a military promotion. Alabama Senator Tommy Tuberville, all right, recently resorted to his previously tried and tested strategy of military blockades. This time, he was protesting the military promotion of aide to Defense Secretary Lloyd J. Austin III. President Joe Biden tapped the aide, Army Lieutenant General Ronald P. Clark, for a promotion to four-star commander of all U.S. Army forces in the Pacific, according to the Washington Post, which first reported Tuberville's block on approval of the promotion. Tuberville's more than 10-month-long hold on roughly 450 senior military promotions ended in December last year. In 2023, Tuberville opposed, or Tuberville, excuse me, I think that's how you say his name, opposed the Pentagon's abortion-related policies. So, and the defense secretary's, or why is Tuberville blocking this nomination? Upon the defense secretary's hospitalization on January 1st, following complications from surgery on December, Austin's office, including Clark, did not disclose the information to the White House or Congress until days later. Austin's doctors later revealed that he was being treated for cancer, according to CNN. The Alabama senator told Politico that he wants to learn more about Clark's involvement at the time of Austin's hospitalization. Everybody wants information on why. All right, Tuberville said, we need a full understanding of why he did what he did and did not inform the commander in chief of the problem. Tuberville is exactly right with this. Why are you even putting this guy up for an assignment like this? Now, I haven't looked into Clark or anything else, but if he was part of this administration where the defense secretary was gone, all right, and out of commission and in special and under surgery and everything else, and nobody was reporting it to the president of the United States, that one of his advisors was completely missing. All right, but see, Biden doesn't care. It didn't bother him. Nothing bothers him. Except if he misses tapioca night. This is a huge issue, folks. Climate protesters are taking action against big oil. UK courts are handing them prison terms akin to rapists and thieves. As right-wing rioters attacked communities with racist violence across parts of the UK last month, a 22-year-old climate activist, Cressy Gethin, all right, sat in a prison cell. Her crime? Organizing a disruptive protest against the new government granting licenses to drill for oil, a planet-heating fossil fuel, all right, in the North Sea. Late January, London court found her and four other members of Just Stop Oil activist group guilty of conspiring and intentionally causing a major public nuisance after recruiting protesters to climb the structure on the M25, the main ring road around London, and bringing traffic to a for standstill in parts for over 4 days in November of 2022. Prosecutors allege the protesters, organized over disrupted more than 700,000 drivers, basically holding 700,000 people temporarily hostage, causing economic damages of over $980,000 and racked up a £1 million in policing costs. Now Getham and three others, Louise Lancaster, Daniel Shaw, and Lucia Whitaker D. Aberu. I'm sorry, not trying to butcher your name. All right, who planned the disruption on the call, are serving 4-year jail terms. Okay, while Just Stop Oil co-founder Roger Hamlin was given 5 years. All are appealing. You only give rapists 4-year jail terms? 4 years. Of which you only have to serve 2. And they are, the judge, who in court referenced the activists as extremists, they are extremists, right? Justified the long jail. These are not long jail terms. She's 22. She served 2 years in prison. She's 24 when she gets out. And unlike the United States, nothing else happens. Personally, what they should do with all these climate activists, they should go in there and find the names of every single one of these climate activists, right? Sit up there and immediately incarcerate every single one of them, put them in a military style boot camp, and say, now you're going to really do something. You're going to go attack freaking the problem that really exists in China. We're going to send you all to China. We're going to drop you in as a military brigade into China, and then we'll see how long you last. That's what we should be doing. Show us your commitment, bitch. Show us your commitment to stopping oil by going after the people who are the number one polluters on the planet. Show it to me. Back across here. Harris organizer objects to subpoena from Republican House Judiciary Committee Chairman Jordan. A Democrat strategist who helped organize the White Dudes for Harris call, right, said that he is fighting back against a subpoena from Republican House Judiciary Committee Chair Jim Jordan on Friday. I'm objecting to the subpoena issued by Jim Jordan and the Republican-led House Judiciary Committee in its entirety. This subpoena serves no legitimate legislative purpose, making it invalid, unconstitutional, and unenforceable. Wrong! It's enforceable. All right, you're going to find out. Authentic Campaigns CEO Mike Nellis, all right, said on a post on X, the House Judiciary Committee previously subpoenaed the Authentic Campaigns, a company the daughter of New York judge overseeing President Trump's hush money trial has worked for. In a letter late last month, Jordan requested that Nellis sit for a deposition alongside the company, as well as sign a sworn affidavit that Authentic Campaigns never had contact with Judge Juan Merchan. And that's what he's trying to avoid, because it was all a freaking colluding, conspiring event. You can't ask me that. You can't tell me these things. You can't subpoena me for something like that. If there's nothing there, then just go there and say, hey, we didn't do anything. Sign the document. See, but this bastard knows he's in trouble. This guy knows because he realizes somebody has his name on something else. These guys are in for a freaking surprise, right? Because Jordan is going to issue them to go to jail. Now, will the Biden administration do anything? No, of course not. And then it will be shown even more of the hypocrisy that they have. Because Bannon will then use that saying, look, why didn't they charge this guy? He ignored the subpoena. Why are you charging me? It's okay to ignore subpoenas from freaking from Republicans, but not from Democrats. Is that the issue? Snowflakeism. Gen Z hires are easily offended and not ready for the workplace, say business leaders. No shit. Say it isn't so. Oh, please, say it isn't so. Gen Z employees are entitled, too easily offended, lazy, and generally unprepared for the workplaces, according to their bosses. The dismal assessment of workers born between 1996 and 2010 comes in a poll of 966 business leaders across the country taken last month by an online education magazine, Intelligent.com. The survey found that 75% of executives felt that most of the recent college grads they hired were unsuccessful, and 60% said at least some of them had to be fired. The supervisors, who ranged from C suite executives and business owners to senior and human resources managers at companies with more than 10 employees, said that they'll refrain from hiring Gen Z workers in the coming year. With Gen Z, we got a ton of access to information and a lot of content, news sources, and influences, said Hu Nguyen, a chief education and career development advisor for Intelligent and a former Fortune 500 hiring manager. So when they go into a company that has more traditional norms, you get a situation where it doesn't always mesh. About 17% of leaders believe that Gen Z, in a range of between their teens to about 28, is often too difficult to manage, and 39% said they have poor communication skills. Ding, 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 ding. Jensen James, an international entrepreneur and business mentor and speaker, said some Gen Zers struggle to articulate themselves, don't look you in the eye, and don't project their voices. They lack charisma and personality skills. They don't feel that they are in tune with what it takes to impress others. James, they don't care. It's not that they don't. This guy is such a clod. All right. They don't feel that they're in tune. They don't see a need to be in tune with it. James has seen what he calls snowflakeism. Some Gen Zers crumbling under even a little pressure. It's almost like you have to walk around eggshells around them, being super sensitive when managing them in case you offend them, upset them, or you push them too far. Some 20 somethings have even brought a parent with them to job interviews for support. Corporate environments and office culture have relaxed in recent years, Nguyen noted, and are viewed differently between generations. But even with a more laid back office environment, recent college graduates don't dress professionally and don't use appropriate language for work, 19% of those surveyed said. A lot of these responses match up with general stereotypes of how people talk about Gen Z in general. Maybe because there's reason for it. He said some beliefs are subjective, others are not, he said, like being on time. Ding, 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 ding. About 20% of the respondents said Gen Zers are often late for work, and 15% said that they frequently hand assignments in late. The younger generation is also more likely to use up their sick days rather than their older colleagues. And then they bitch about not being able to do things. Woman busted again for domestic dildo battery. September 13th. It's the witching hour. For the second time in 2 years, a Florida woman, what a surprise, has been arrested for a dildo related domestic battery. Chelsea White, 35, and her boyfriend were in the kitchen about to eat when the man discovered that his missing glass dildo was inside White's backpack. The couple's Fort Pierce resident. A missing glass dildo. During the 11 p.m. tussle that ensued, White and her 35-year-old victim exchanged assorted blows. After the pair briefly separated, the man told the cops White began to hit him again after they went to grab the back. After he went to grab the backpack, White was standing in the kitchen and threw the glass dildo at her beau. The dildo missed the target, instead hitting the floor and waking up the couple's child. I mean, you can make these stories up. You can't make these stories up. More men accuse Abercrombie and Fitch boss Mike Jeffries and his British partner of sexual exploitation, as some claim their penises were injected with liquid Viagra. More men have come forward with accounts of being recruited and exploited for sex at events hosted by the fashion guru who turned Abercrombie and Fitch into a global clothing powerhouse and his partner. 8 men have joined a dozen others uh, with a dozen others to say that they were approached and coerced into attending sex parties curated for the entertainment by Mike Jeffries, the former CEO of the clothing brand, and his life partner Matthew Smith. The pair, aged 80 and 61 respectively, have previously denied all claims of wrongdoing, while the clothing brand itself has sought to distance itself from the allegations, denying knowledge of their existence. It is investigating. However, a new podcast features the accounts of several men who say they were molested at sex events held in the Grand Hotel rooms and even injected with what they were told was liquid Viagra, to which one person suffered a severe reaction. In addition, one alleged abuse survivor claimed that one of Jeffrey's assistants had been working for Abercrombie and Fitch as he supervised the sex events, reportedly using company email and addresses. Okay, the men spoke. The men spoke to BBC's World of Secrets podcast, which first detailed the bombshell allegations against Abercrombie and Fitch, all right, Jeffries and Smith last September. 2 new episodes were released last night after the broadcaster said it was approached by multiple other men in the wake of a Panorama documentary released inside the podcast. The FBI is investigating the allegations and has interviewed some of those involved, including one man who attended the parties all right, but claimed that they were held with the full consent of those involved. But 8 men who spoke to the BBC said they were exploited by Jeffries and Smith, who have denied the allegations. One man, given the name Luke to protect his identity, said he was recruited from a modeling website and guided into a hotel suite in Spain. It had been dressed up and to resemble an Abercrombie and Fitch store in a twisted role play scenario. He claimed that he was encouraged to act as one of the store's infamous shirtless greeters to impress 2 very important guests, Jeffries and Smith, who then forcibly kissed him and tried to perform oral sex on him. Luke recalled, I was trying to avoid the whole situation as much as I could. Michael was very aggressive. I tried to say no repeatedly, and I was constantly saying no. The only thing is, if you're a grown man and you're engaged in this, that's on you. Okay. Miami cop at the center of the Tariq Hill detainment was previously suspended 6 times. A Miami-Dade police officer at the center of the Tariq Hill controversial detainment reportedly has a history of misconduct. Danny Torres, who Hill accused of using excessive force when he detained the Dolphins' superstar wide receiver prior to the team's season opener on Sunday, following a traffic stop for alleged speeding, was suspended 6 times previously in his career. The suspensions varied in length from 5 to 20 days. Torres was accused of misconduct such as force violations and improper procedures, said TMZ. Okay, none of this justifies Tariq Hill. All right, the term excessive use of force is another one of those nebulous terms that gets put out there when people say, "Oh, it could have been done differently." Well, then why aren't you doing it? Well, police are trained. So police are trained. So why don't you go in there and show them how it's done? I'm not justifying anybody's actions here, with the exception of Tyreek Hill's. All right, I'm not justifying Tyreek Hill's. All of this would not have been an issue if Tyreek Hill said, Here's my driver's license. Here's my insurance." Rolled down the window. No, he got immediately belligerent. How dare you stop me? I'm on my way to the game, and you can't stop me. And no, I'm not going to roll down my window. And then rolled it down because he was ordered to, and then said, You have no reason to stop me," and tried to and then rolled the window back up. At which point they opened the car door to pull him out. Oh, I was getting out. I was getting out when they opened the car door. No, you were getting ready to try and grab the door back so you could sit up there and fight with the officer. Oh, I was complying at that point. Doesn't matter. They were overly aggressive. I was complaining about my knee. I was complaining because I had surgery on my knee. Okay, you had surgery on your knee and we're going to an NFL football game. Yeah, you were really worried about your knee. Dude, you acted the clown. You got arrested. I really wish people would understand this because too many flipping people do not understand this. They cannot get it through their freaking tiny little skulls. The primary purpose of the police, regardless of what city, regardless of what municipality, regardless of what jurisdiction or nation or anything else, whether it's Russia, whether it's Bonn, whether it's Berlin, whether it's Rome, London, New York, Omaha, Nebraska. Wisner, Nebraska. Tucson, Arizona. Doesn't matter. The police's primary purpose is not law enforcement. It's not to serve and protect. Their number one objective is and has always been to establish order. Period. And the reason it's that way is it has to be that way. You have to establish order to start with, or you're not able to do any of the other functions. You're not able to do law enforcement without order. Without establishing order, how can you protect anything? You have to establish order. That is the primary role of police. And when it comes to the use of force, there's no, you should be using equivalent use of force. It's not how it works. In order to establish order, you have to be willing to use overwhelming force. Otherwise, you won't get the order that's necessary. This guy was handled roughly and put on the ground. He wasn't bruised, he wasn't hurt, he wasn't kicked. He just didn't like getting arrested while people watched because it was embarrassing. And yes, he should be receiving a fine from the NFL for his conduct. Pastor pleads to deep frying bid of a McDonald's worker. A North Carolina pastor accused of assaulting a McDonald's cook, all right, and shoving the victim's face toward a deep fryer. Whoa, that's close to murder, dude. All right, has pled guilty to the fast food fracas, records show. Dwayne Waden, 57, was busted in December following a violent confrontation at the High Point restaurant where his wife was employed. Waden arrived at the McDonald's after his spouse, a manager in training, called him to report that the employees were disrespecting her. Latoya Gladney, 45, told cops that she wanted Walden to assist her with the workplace issue. Walden cops said, walked into McDonald's kitchen and began walloping the cook, Theodore Garlington, in the face. He also allegedly wrapped his hands around Garlington's neck and began pushing his head toward the deep fryer. Other workers interceded before the victim was rendered golden brown. Garlington suffered a large contusion on the forehead and right eye, along with scratches on his neck. Walden, seen above, was arrested for the attack. During a recent court hearing, Walden copped a misdemeanor assault charge and was sentenced to serve a few weeks in the county jail, while a court order indicates that Walden's prior number of convictions to be 5. Those priors are not further detailed. Walden's Facebook page identifies him as pastor of the Elevated Life International Ministries, which has operated from a storefront space in Thomasville that is principally occupied by the Turnaround Christian Center. An online profile lists Walden as a semi truck driver and the former school divinity student at Shaw University in Raleigh. Behold! Here's how you find Christ in the golden fries. I'm being a bit snarky here. Now, we don't know how this altercation came about, and it's not specified in here. I would hope that this guy didn't just walk in and immediately start beating on this guy and so forth. I have a feeling that this guy either did something or said something specifically about his wife that the guy felt he had to defend his wife from. All right. I'm not saying he shouldn't go to jail. Okay. I'm not saying that he didn't go over the top. Trying to push somebody's head into a fryer is a bit beyond the pale. All right. Just going to put it there. Sick. An Ohio woman, 27, killed and ate a cat, police charge. An Ohio woman stomped a cat to death before eating the animal, according to police. The alleged municipal court complaints Alexis Farrell killed the cat by stomping on its head outside a public housing complex in Canton, where she resides. Police responding late Friday evening to the disturbing incident, which was witnessed by multiple individuals, found Farrell squatting next to the dead feline. Farrell, cops reported, had blood on her feet and hands and fur on her lips. Court findings did not reveal who owned the cat. Seen at the right, Farrell was arrested on several felony and misdemeanor counts and booked in the county jail, where she is being held in lieu of a $100,000 bond. Farrell is scheduled for an August 26th preliminary hearing. According to court records, Farrell's rap sheet includes multiple theft convictions, as well as a 2023 felony conviction for child endangerment, for, for which she was sentenced to 3 years probation. Farrell was sued for eviction earlier this year by the Stark County Housing Authority, but the case was subsequently dropped by the plaintiff. I think the word sick is correct. Final two stories of the day. Dog rescued after weeks of wandering New Jersey highways. A New Jersey animal shelter said that a Jack Russell Terrier spotted running loose for weeks along the highways near Newark Liberty International Airport is now safe and has a new name, Monkey. The dog, believed to be under a year old, was spotted on multiple occasions over the course of several weeks and evaded previous capture attempts. The canine was eventually caught in a trap by Buddha Dog Rescue and Recovery, which gave the terrier the name Monkey. Monkey was taken to the Ramapo Bergen Animal Refuge on a stray hold, but officials said they believe he was likely abandoned intentionally. Surprisingly, Monkey is not the first Jack Russell Terrier dumped in the area in recent months. And even more unexpectedly, it took only minutes for the adorable dog to warm up to human touch despite evading rescuers for so long, the shelter said. Officials said that Monkey is doing well in rehabilitation and will eventually be placed in a new permanent home. It's a pretty dog. There's no doubt it's a pretty dog. All right. I hope that everything works for the puppy and that turns out well. All right. All's well that ends well in that story. That's a good story. One last one. Indiana medical call turns into a monkey rescue. Emergency responders in Indiana experienced a first when a medical call ended with firefighters rescuing a monkey that had got loose and scaled a building. The Lucy Fire Territory said in a Facebook post that firefighters responded alongside the Spencer County EMS and Spencer County Sheriff's Office to a call for medical assistance in Sandridge and were confronted with a first for all three departments. The post said the respondents tending to a patient learned their monkey had gotten loose and scaled the building and could not get down on its own. The firefighters were able to safely bring the monkey down, where it was cared for by deputies while EMS tended to its owner. We can see this here. The poor little, looks like a type of spider monkey of some sort. People who use have monkeys as pets, right? Monkeys don't make great pets, folks. Don't. I know they're cute and I know they're adorable, but these are wild creatures. You need to leave these monkeys in the wild. If you start bringing them into your home with pets, okay, you're not doing anyone a service. Okay, you're not. I'm just pointing it out. All right, everybody, that's everything I got for today. Hope you all have a good day. Thanks for coming out. Talk to y'all later. Bye bye, everybody.